Good afternoon. My name is Rob Zile, and I'm the Director of the Center for Public and Nonprofit Management here at the Levin College of Urban Affairs. I just wanted to say welcome to everyone. We really appreciate your attendance today and participating in our Share Your Story event. This is our third of our series, and I'm really excited to have our guests today. The series in general is designed to showcase female leaders throughout our region that have some amazing story as far as their career development and kind of what the impact that they're having in the community. The reason why I'm so excited is that this is our third series, a third of the series, but the other two folks, we focused on our Greater Cleveland Regional Transit Authority, so it's a special district. The second panelist was from the federal government at the National Security Council. And today we're featuring two leaders from our nonprofit area. So I just want to showcase the diversity of the panelists that we have and able to focus on both our government side of the shop and also the nonprofit side of the shop. Before I pass the baton over to Alexandra to get the party started for today's event, I personally want to say thank you to our panelists, both Linda and Abby. You both have been great champions and leaders in the community, but also dear friends and family to our center and to the college, both as academic students and really involved in our mentoring program and helping our students to gain the practical career and experience that they need to advance their career. So on behalf of the Levin College and University, I want to say thank you for all of your help and partnership throughout these years. And especially thank you for today for being willing to share your story. And also, this is the first time we are going to showcase a mother-daughter duo, and I'm really excited to hear how they interact both on the personal and professional side as well. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Alexandra Higgle, who is our program manager and in charge of our Women's Leadership Series. So without further ado, Alexandra, take it away.
Thank you so much, Rob. Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's Share Your Story event. As Rob said, my name is Alexandra Higgle, and I serve as the program manager at the center and will moderate today's session. Before we begin, please note that today's session is being recorded and will be posted on the college's YouTube channel. Secondly, we will be taking questions from the audience via the Q&A chat function. Please feel free to send over your questions in the Q&A box, and we'll answer them towards the end of today's conversation. I'd like to thank our team for assisting with this program, including Rob, who you've heard from already, and our graduate assistant, Amira Mary, who will assist with the audience Q&A portion. Also, a special thanks goes out to the Wink Family Charitable Foundation and the Levin College's Office of the Dean for their unwavering support. This newer component of the Women's Leadership Series, Share Your Story, is really designed to highlight dynamic female leaders in public and nonprofit organizations, allowing them to share their stories and empower and inspire others. I'm absolutely thrilled to interview not only one, but two inspirational leaders today, Linda Uveges and Abigail Uveges. We invited Linda and Abby to join us for a number of reasons. First of all, they're an incredible mother-daughter duo who really epitomize the mission of this series, which is the concept of women empowering women, or essentially empowering others. Today, we're going to listen to a little bit about how they do that at the city mission and in their personal lives as well. We also invited them because our center at the Levin College values our long-standing partnership with the city mission, and we really admire the impactful and important work the organization accomplishes in the greater Cleveland area. Also, as an added bonus, both Linda and Abby are graduates of Cleveland State University, namely the Levin College, and are still incredibly active in the college. Linda and Abby have served as mentors in our center's mentoring program, and Linda sits on our Women's Leadership Advisory Committee. But before I dive into questions and bring them on the screen, I'm going to formally introduce them and read their professional bios so you all can get a sense of their background and have a context for today's conversation. So I'm going to start with reading Linda's bio first. Linda started her career at the City Mission as a volunteer with their women's program at Angeline Christian Home in 2003. She joined the staff in 2005 and served in a variety of roles before becoming the Laura's Home Women's Crisis Center Program Manager. Today, Linda is the mission's Chief Operating Officer. Linda graduated with a Master of Nonprofit Administration and Leadership from CSU's Levin College in 2016. And as a side note, Linda has served on past panels at the college and has some really inspiring stories that will hopefully resonate with our viewers today. And welcome, Linda. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks, Alexandra. Happy to be here.
Excellent. All right, so I'm going to bring on Abby. Next up is Linda's daughter, Abby Uveges. Abby joined the City Mission as an intern before working in a variety of positions, including caseworker, assistant manager at Laura's Home, and currently the New Horizons program manager, which she's going to talk a little bit about today, and we're excited to hear about her work with that. Her early work at Laura's Home inspired her to pursue social work at Mount Vernon Nazarene University before returning to the mission in 2016. In her time at the City Mission, Abby developed a passion for empowering individuals and working with women in crisis. You can kind of hear why we chose Abby today. Abby graduated with a Master of Nonprofit Administration and Leadership from CSU's Levin College in 2019. Welcome, Abby.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Alexandra.
Thank you. Well, thank you so very much for being here today. Are you ready to dive into questions?
Yes.
Sure.
Awesome. So we're going to start with some organizational related questions. And for those of our audience members who may not be familiar with the City Mission, tell us a little bit about the organization, including Crossroads, Laura's Home, and the New Horizons program.
Sure. I'll start with our main programs. As you mentioned, Laura's Home, Crossroads, and Pathways. So Laura's Home is a women's facility for women and children who are experiencing homelessness or are in a crisis. Laura's Home, we actually are celebrating our 18th anniversary on February 14th. So we have been there for 18 years. And what we provide for women and children is an opportunity to come and really explore those underlying complexities of what brought them to the mission and in their crisis. So we have 166 beds at Laura's Home, and that facility has been full for the last 7 years. Which is, it's very sad that we have to say that, but we are grateful to be able to serve so many women and children. Right now, the women are engaging in an individualized program to really address what, as I mentioned, what brought them there. And even though we've been at capacity, we also have a wait list. So we have a wait list that we track every day how many women are calling. And before COVID, we would experience 40, 50, sometimes 60 calls a day from women and children who are needing our services. And unfortunately, we weren't able to serve all of them because we were at capacity, but we do refer them to other resources within the community. At Crossroads, really the same thing. We have about 110 beds for men who are experiencing homelessness or in a crisis. And what we do in both of these facilities is we offer a program that will address those complexities to what brought them there. We have classes that they will take. There are caseworkers for every single individual so that they can put together an individualized service plan. We talk an ISP so that they have a plan when they come and what goals they want to meet as they go through our program. The average stay, we get this question a lot, is how long can someone stay? So it's about 9 to 12 months. Usually a little bit longer for women with children because it takes time to find the housing and the employment that they need to be stable. So those are our two outcomes. We want every individual to leave with stable housing and income, and that's going to look different for each person. The other program we have at Laura's Home is our Pathways program, and that is an after-school program, but because of COVID, and I know we'll talk a little bit more about that later, it has turned into a school, Pathways Academy, because the kids are all home. And so it's all virtual. So all of our kids, we have about 45 students that are residing at Laura's Home with their mom. And so we added extra staff. We added dividers to make sure distancing for our kids. And we purchased Chromebooks and whatever we needed to make sure that the kids would be able to navigate their school during this crazy time. But so far, the kids are doing great. And I'm just so grateful for the incredible dedicated staff that are there every day working with the kids and working with the moms. But I think I'll let Abby talk about the other program, which is our New Horizons program.
Yeah. So I transitioned into the New Horizons program manager position in November. So I'm still a little bit new to the position, but I know the city mission well. So with the New Horizons program, it's a home ownership program. So we speak with the Laura's Home staff when we have a community partner who's willing to purchase a home or renovate a home. So we've had different partners within the community who have chosen to donate financially to a home. So when we have a home that we know that we're going to be able to rehab and it's funded, we speak with Laura's Home staff about recommending a mom and children. So, and we look at all different factors. So just her mental, physical stability. Is she able to work? Is she employable? Will she be able to handle the responsibility of a home? Essentially, that's what we're looking at. So staff will recommend a family, and then we'll start the renovation process. So we, a couple of the homes we've purchased from the Cuyahoga Land Bank for $1. And then we have a community partner who is willing to finance the renovations. And then we take on the responsibility of finding volunteer hours, but typically those, whatever purchased the home or the renovations wants to be involved in the volunteer work as well, which is so cool. We've also partnered with Independence Construction. They have done thousands of dollars of free labor and donated materials for us on the last 2 homes, which has been absolutely amazing. So it's a really, it's a effort from a lot of different areas. It's not just the city mission at all. It's a lot of contributions from local partners, which is great. So when the home is ready, we renovate the home. Our goal is that the mom who is moving into this home will not have to make any large renovations or work on the house for at least 15 to 20 years. We want this house to be ready for her and in good condition. So the mom with her children will move in, and she'll have worked with me or the program manager for at least typically 6 months before moving into the home. So she's actively preparing herself, creating a budget, just discussing what is it going to be when you move into the home? What are the responsibilities of being a homeowner? So the mom will move into the home with her family. She will be in the homeownership program for 12 to 24 months. And really that's a decision that's made with the mom as well as the caseworker. Are you ready to take on the title of the home and all of the potential costs that come with that? So it could be 12 months, it could be 24. We'll be there as a support for as long as she needs. So once that program is complete, we transfer the title of the home into the mother's name, and there's no mortgage on the home. That is her home. She never has to speak to us again if she doesn't want to. So it's a really amazing, the focus of New Horizons was how do we disrupt generational poverty? That's the goal of New Horizons. So how do we make an impact on not only the mom's life, but also her children's? So, this is an opportunity for that mom to have equity, to really move forward in life and in her journey. So we have had 5 women who have had the title of the home transferred to them, and they completed the program. We have 2 women currently in a home completing the program. And then we have our 8th home that will be complete in March. So that is the New Horizons program. And it's just a really cool bridge from Laura's home to another program within the city mission. So.
Well, thank you so much for sharing all of that. And I'm fascinated to hear more about all of these programs during today's conversation. And I also just want to say thank you so much for continuing to serve others and do really important work in the community throughout this pandemic. So thank you for finding innovative ways to continue to serve. So I'm kind of curious because the organization is a faith-based nonprofit. And so my understanding is that you do not receive government funding. Is that correct? And if so, can you tell us a little more about that and the implications surrounding that?
Sure. We are celebrating actually 2020 through the rest of this year, 110 years that the city mission has been in Cleveland. So we have been here a long time, and all of those 110 years, we have never taken any government funding. And the reason for that is we would like, and we believe in addressing those underlying complex issues that bring individuals to the city mission. And if we were to take government funding, that would change our whole initiative. So, and there's restrictions on that if you take government money, and it is fine because there are other shelters that do, and it's very, very helpful, but that would limit the time that an individual would be able to stay at the mission. So usually it'd be 30 to 45 days. That is the goal for most shelters, so that they can, get rapid rehousing in the Housing First program. So, but what we have is a different approach, being able to talk about those issues, whether it's mental health, addiction, trauma. So many of our clients have experienced every single one of those. Re-entry, coming out of prison or the system. And so to be able to address and work very passionately and carefully with each person, we know that we need that time. It doesn't happen overnight. It doesn't change in 30 days. Oftentimes, as Abby mentioned, this is generational poverty. This is something that we want to break that cycle. And so our approach is to work on breaking that cycle. And I say that's our approach. There are others which I believe are valid and very, very helpful. And we work with those organizations and other shelters together so that we can do what's best for that individual. So also, because we do not take government funding, we're able to adjust our program fairly quickly. And if we see a need, if we see something, our population changes, obviously 110 years ago was a very different need than what it is today. So we are able to constantly evaluate, be able to look at what we're doing, all of our programs, like, is this still working or isn't it? And we evaluate that, and we're able to make decisions sometimes rather quickly. Not everybody loves that, and staff like, what we're doing? Yeah, we have to address this issue. Or, if we see, we're expecting the future that there's going to be a lot more elderly individuals who are suffering from homelessness. So 65 and older is a big population that they're expecting to that will need more services. So then we need to adjust our program, and we're able to do that at the mission and just kind of be able to address those in the moment without any constraints, because there's a federal strategy right now, and that's fine. That's the federal strategy. And if we were to take that money, then we would need to do only that. But we want to have that freedom to be able to do more. And of course, because we're faith-based, we want to be able to keep that as part of our foundation. We are not a certain religion. We're not a denomination. We don't require any type of conversion, but we do have that's just woven within all of our programs.
Yeah, that's really fascinating to hear. And it's great to hear that you're able to stay nimble and stay on top of the issues that you're facing on a day-to-day basis. So I want to unpack this a little more. So how specifically, how do you fundraise? How do you remain financially sustainable, especially during the challenges that we've been facing throughout the pandemic over this past year?
So right now, 87.5% of our income comes from individuals, and we have about a $7 million budget. And I'm just amazed at the faithfulness of individual donors. And the average gift of that individual donor is about $75 a month. And they have been faithful for years and years and years. And the rest of that income that makes up our 100% of our budget will be grants and foundations and planned giving, where somebody leaves that in their will or has funds for us. So we have continued to really want to strengthen our donors and that initiative. We've recently hired major gift officers. So our development department is really growing, but we see that as so very important, because obviously that is how we continue to do what we do. Because of the pandemic, there were some individuals that had to go home, work from home, but because of their underlying health conditions or because of their age, but they actually couldn't do their job, what they were currently doing at the mission. So we repurposed them, and we started a thank you call initiative. So every gift, $10 and above, we had them calling donors and thanking them for their gift, or writing a handwritten note. We just really make a very intentional effort to thank our donors. And we're not asking for another gift, we're just thanking them. Or we would just say, how can we pray for you, or anything like that, just to have those touches that really mean a lot to our donors. So I guess, we all are working together, and we see the value of our development department. Social media has been a huge impact. We've seen a increase in online giving versus, sending in that check or sending in a response to an appeal that we would send out normally. So we have very dedicated donors that we're very grateful for.
That's great. I love that individualized approach. I think that says so much too about your organization and in how you interact with the community. So I know you mentioned about how you've dealt with the challenges of the pandemic. I also want to talk about another timely and relevant issue. So can you talk a little bit about some of the challenges the organization has faced or is facing in the cold winter months in terms of providing assistance and shelter and such for folks?
Do you want to answer that, Abby?
Yeah, I can answer that. So yeah, as far as with the pandemic, we had to adjust to a lot of different changes and just what the needs of our clients were. In the early on months with there being, lockdowns and or stay at home orders, things like that, it was a huge challenge to keep. I was currently in the assistant manager role at Laura's Home. So my experience was with Laura's Home through the pandemic, but we had to find ways to keep the women and children occupied and not go insane. So we had something that we did that was really awesome was we put on our Amazon wish list, we put portable DVD players and adult coloring books, crafts, games, board games, things that would just kind of encourage family time in a positive way. We also had our, because we were socially distancing, school was done at this point. So there was no virtual school yet. So this was in like March, April, summertime. And we had our youth staff who did distanced floor parties every day. So they would take a speaker up to each floor, have a little distanced dance party with the kids in the hallways, just trying to be very creative with, how can we make this as positive as possible? And it was a huge adjustment for staff as well. So everybody's roles changed in every aspect. We started sanitizing the building 4 to 6 times a day. We tried to play music. We tried to make it fun. We actually had competitions for the women. So, because they were asked and encouraged to sanitize with the staff, but they weren't required to. So we had to find ways to say, hey, staff is doing it. We want to keep each other healthy and safe. So we kept track of how often the women would take a slot for cleaning. And then we gave, $20 gift cards on a weekly basis, just trying to really engage everyone and keep it as positive as possible. So it wasn't easy at all. And the restrictions of really only the women who were employed were leaving the building. They were able to go to the grocery store and to Family Dollar next door, things like that. But it was not easy. We tried to provide some minimal childcare while still distancing so that the moms got a break from the kids. Because I'm sure if anybody on here is a mom, being with your child 24/7 in a small room can be challenging. So it was a huge adjustment. We had some of our staff working in maintenance, working in the security positions at the front desk, because at any moment we had to be prepared for our coworkers who had to be out of work due to symptoms or potentially having COVID. So it was really a time where all staff and clients, and I have to say, I was so impressed by the way the women and the kids handled, especially the first 6 months of just when life was very difficult. Everything was closed. There was no other options but being at Laura's Home. And I was very impressed at the women's dedication to come alongside staff and keep our building clean and safe. So it was definitely a huge adjustment, and distancing wasn't fun for anybody. Nobody wants to always be 6 feet apart. Our staff love our kids, and distancing from the kids is always challenging. So it was a huge adjustment. But we were able to keep everyone so healthy, and especially our elderly clients. We always kept a very close eye on them as well, checking in on their rooms, doing whatever we could with the staff that we had. So.
Mm-hmm. I think adding on to that, one thing I'm really proud of is that we never closed our doors in spite of, the pandemic. We knew that there were people in need, people that needed somewhere to go. And so I'm grateful that we kept our doors open for both facilities, for the men and also for the women and children. And I know that people were scared. You're so afraid of getting it. And but I would just also mention our staff being on the front lines and doing that and being there every day to care for those individuals that came for help. And I am very proud that that we never had to, we just have to close because we can't, but we kept them open. So.
Yeah, that's really impressive. I mean, especially during times like that. I mean, just, persevering, finding innovative methods just to keep serving is really, really great. And it sounds like too, like, you were able to create some memories and moments that I'm sure, the women and children will remember. And so that's really great for continuing to stay positive throughout all of that. So it's been really fascinating to hear about the organization, and we will go back to it a little bit, but I want to switch gears if I can. So I want to hear a little more about your personal stories. So I was wondering if you'd like to talk about your professional journeys. And Linda, I'd like to start with you, if that's okay. I know you have a really interesting story to tell about your career transition and how you navigated that. Would you mind sharing?
No, thank you. Yes, I'd love to share. Yeah, so I started at the mission as a volunteer about, I think it was 2003, as you mentioned, and I was a stay-at-home mom. I have 5 kids, and Abby is obviously one of them. And I just really thought that, you know, let's get out of our bubble. Let's see. A friend told me about the city mission. I had never heard about the city mission or Laura's Home. Laura's Home was this new facility. And so my friend encouraged me to check it out. So I went by myself. My impression was, first I think, well, I'm going to go to a shelter, a homeless shelter. I knew nothing. I'm thinking it's probably going to be just a big room with bunk beds and dorms and kind of dark, maybe dirty. I don't know. Those are my very uneducated perceptions. And when I went there, it was the absolute opposite. It was beautiful. It was full of light. There was individual rooms. There was just hope as I walked in. And so I volunteered there. I got our kids and my husband, and we started serving meals, maybe doing a chapel here and there. And then eventually they, at Laura's Home, they had an opening in a security position. And I thought, well, that would be great. I can do that. It was at night, so it didn't interfere with my schooling of my kids or just being, taking care of them. And the kids all said, Mom, what do you know about security? And I just felt being a mom was a great qualification. So I did it and I loved it. And I have to say that I have served in several different roles at the mission. And the other day, somebody asked me what was my favorite position. And I have to say it was security. And I say security because I loved being the first person that an individual saw as they came into the door. So a mom is coming with her kids. She is feeling emotionally, physically, mentally abused or down or just beaten down, emotionally, all those things. And I get to be the first one that says, you have value. I treat her with dignity and respect, all those things that she deserves. And to be able to care for her, and as she comes into the mission, it was just, to me, it was my absolute favorite position. But after that, I served in the kitchen. They needed a cook, so I said, okay, sure, I'll go there. And then they wanted me back in security, just multiple roles. I volunteered in childcare, did pretty much every role at Laura's Home, I think, except caseworker. But so then our CEO came to me and said, we would like you to be the manager of Laura's Home. And at that time, I just was like, to me, that's like a dream come true. Are you kidding me? That is like so awesome. I was so honored and was so excited. But he said, he assumed I had a degree, and I did not have a degree at all. And just briefly, when I graduated from high school, I went to Ohio University, and I was only there 2 quarters because I just thought college was supposed to be fun and you don't really need to go to classes. So that didn't go very well for me. And my parents said, come home. We're not paying for you to have a good time. So that I tell you that because when I was asked to go to school, my first thought was, I'm not smart enough. I flunked out once. I'll never be able to do this. I haven't been in school for 25 years. Who do you think you are? I had all of those messages that were really, I guess, damaging or, very discouraging and thinking I cannot do it. But thankfully, I have a wonderful support system in my husband and my kids, and said, no, I'm not going to pass this up. I'm going to do this. And I remember I just wanted to go to Tri-C first to see if I could take a class, just one class to see if I could pass. And I did. And then I transferred to CSU and finish my degree in 3 years because I'm going to do this. I'm going to finish it. I actually took advantage of the Credit for Life Experience program, which was wonderful. And I was able to put together a whole portfolio and proving or showing that I had knowledge in these areas, and that then I didn't have to actually take that course, but I had to do a lot of research and writing to prove that, and it had to be approved by the college. So that was really wonderful. So I served as the manager, going full-time to school, but loved every minute of it. And then I think it was about 8 months later, and I started thinking, I think I want to go back and get my master's. I really like learning. I've enjoyed it. And everybody told me when your master's degree, it's real practical. You're doing the things, not the prerequisites and the math and the biology and all of those things. So I looked into the coursework and I thought, this looks great. And so I went to my CEO and said, this is what I'd like to do. And he says, wonderful. I want you to be the chief operating officer. That was never my goal. I was not a person that I'm going to climb to the top and I'm going to do this, and that. It really was doors that just became open for me. And in that, my heart, my motive for doing it is, I want to serve wherever I'm needed, and if that's where I'm needed, then that's where I want to go. It wasn't, like I said, it wasn't something I'm going to run this organization someday. It was just, where can I serve the most, and really, where does God want me? So that is exactly how that all came about. It wasn't anything other than that, but I was grateful for the opportunity. And so it was a big, it changed my life. Obviously, I'm staying at home, homeschooling my kids, some of them, and it was just a real transition for our whole family. And I'll just say this one story. I remember transition is hard, and I know we'll talk about that, but I struggled with feeling guilty. Okay, I'm not home like I was before. For maybe my youngest one, or it was a change, and I don't know. I think everybody struggles with that. Am I doing enough? Am I missing opportunities? Have I neglected anything? And then you feel that about work too. Well, should I be here longer? Am I not doing what I need to be doing? But I remember talking to my family at one point. I don't know if Abby remembers this, but I was thinking about, quitting, because I said, maybe it's just too much. Maybe I just can't. This is when I was the manager at Laura's Home. And, every single one of them, like, no, we love to hear about what you're doing. They love to hear my stories, because I always came home with just fun stories from my day. But it was really neat for me because I didn't realize they are watching. They are also seeing what their mom was doing and how that impacted my family, which I really had no idea. And I'm thinking, oh, I'm neglecting something, but it really was just the opposite.
What an inspiring story. I know I've heard you tell this story a few times. I remember, I think the first time I heard it, you were speaking with our mentoring cohort, and every time I get goosebumps. That is just so inspirational, and I know that resonates with a lot of people. So thank you for sharing that.
Mhm.
So Abby, so just based off of, your bio and your background and knowing you too at Cleveland State, it really appears that you've been interested in serving others for quite some time, since your undergrad is in social work and your graduate degree is in nonprofit administration. So would you mind telling us a little bit about why you chose this path?
Yeah. Yeah, so it's hard not to give all the credit to my mom for just exposing the social work field and the nonprofit field to me at such a young age. In fact, my younger sister just switched her major to social work. So it kind of feels like social work was something that that was in our genes. And I wonder if she had never taken this opportunity and this chance on Laura's Home, how so much of my family, how our directions of our lives would have been different. So it's cool to think about. So I got involved with Laura's Home, I think at an age that I don't even remember, but my earliest memories of being very involved. And I actually started an internship there officially. I think I was one of the first interns. I was only 15 or 16, I don't know. And I helped in childcare. So that's where it all kind of started. And at 16, I had decided to be a teacher. In my head, that's what I was thinking. And there was a social worker who was coming in on a weekly basis to work with our kids, to work with, their emotional and their behavior, things like that. And I met her, and I'd never heard of what a social worker was. And so I met her at Laura's Home, and she explained to me, this is what I do. I help kids. I help kids that are struggling with their behavior or their emotions. And I was so blown away that there was an actual job to just serve and help people. So it was pretty much a no-brainer from that time. When I met a social worker, I was like, that's what I wanted, because I knew teachers helped people, but I knew that I wanted it in a different way, not necessarily in an educational way. So I continued to serve in our childcare and our youth programs. When I turned 18, I started working in security as well. So again, I was kind of in a position, because I was working other small jobs too at the time. So I was kind of in a position of just whatever Laura's Home needed at the time. So I would spend a summer in childcare, or I'd do a couple shifts in security. And that was amazing experience. I think the experience that I got shaped me so much into who I was at such a young age, because you're just exposed to so many people who are so different from you. And at the same time, they're so different, but you find things in common, and, you could not have lived different lives, but yet you have this connection. And it was just so cool. And then I also learned, how to speak up for myself, how to really find my own voice, because it's a lot of responsibility at a young age, to work at a place like Laura's Home. So that's where it all started. Knew I wanted to go into social work for college, so got my degree. Loved every single social work class. I didn't do so hot in any non-social work classes. I loved the social work program. It was such good experience. And then, in college, I got to do internships as well in a probation office, in a school, a variety of ways. So when I graduated, I was set on moving to Columbus. So I did interviews at other agencies, south of Cleveland, so Mansfield, Columbus area, and I got job offers, but I kept comparing the experiences at those facilities to my experience at Laura's Home. And it was kind of like, I didn't want to go back there because my mom was there. And she was like, if you'll just at least stay open to the opportunity, and if a caseworker position opens up, maybe you could consider it. And the same month that I graduated college, a caseworker position opened. So I was like, okay, fine. So, so I started as a caseworker, and it was such an amazing experience. I loved being a caseworker. I was in a position where I definitely didn't feel very equipped. I didn't have all this experience under my belt. And, clients kept asking me my age and how young I was. And so there was definitely challenges when I started out, but I think my experience before that helped prepare me as well. So I was a caseworker, and then I moved into administrative assistant, and I supervised our security team for about 2.5 years, which was a 24/7 on-call position that was very demanding, and I learned so much. It was my first time being a supervisor, and it was very challenging, but I wouldn't take that back for anything because it gave me such a great experience, and getting to work so closely with our clients and our staff, because we do have an amazing staff. So gradually that led into the assistant manager role. So I was able to work with our program manager at Laura's Home and be a large part in our programming, in our evaluation of what we do, what are we missing, how do we serve our clients better. I worked closely with our caseworkers on client decisions, how to, what are our individual needs of each client that we have. And then I transitioned into the New Horizons position in November. And then I did do the master's program from 2017 to 2019, the nonprofit administration and leadership. So that was a really great experience, because as I was learning my new role at Laura's Home, I was able to take in real time what I was learning in my classes and experiencing into my job, which was awesome, because I was able to learn from the other students and their experiences and really learn from each other. So and being a part of that program really helped me see what else I might be interested in too, because there's a lot of like urban planning students in there, and kind of getting into the housing development, affordable housing in Cleveland, all that, and how that affects our clients. So I'm so grateful to be here. I'm grateful to be in the position I'm in now. That's kind of my journey. So.
That's fantastic. And I see we have some students on the call today, and I'm sure that they will definitely resonate with a lot of things that you said. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So as I mentioned before I introduced you two, there's really a variety of reasons why we've invited you both to be a part of today's conversation. And something that stands out to me is that you both embody the series tagline, so women empowering women. And I want to unpack this a little bit. So in your roles at the city mission, empowering others, women especially, at Laura's Home, is something that you do every day. Can you talk a little bit about how you've done this, and specifically how you empower women at Laura's Home and the New Horizons program? I know you shared a little bit before, but if you can go into more depth, that would be really great.
Yeah. So as far as women empowering women, and obviously we're speaking a little bit more about Laura's Home because it's all women and that's where our majority experiences is. So we emphasize, from every single staff member, first, I think what empowers our women most is the way that they're treated by our staff. And it's a conversation that we have to have consistently, because not because our staff don't treat our women with dignity and respect, but because we have a lot of clients with a lot of different experiences. So we could have a woman coming in our doors who came from a domestic violence situation. So even the tone of how you say something can feel demeaning or degrading. So I have learned so much about my nonverbal cues in life at Laura's Home. So it doesn't matter just what you say, it matters how you say it. It matters your body language, the volume and how you speak. All of those aspects really matter. And what's so important to keep at the forefront of our minds when we work with our clients is we don't know what they've experienced. And we don't know what they've been through either in their past or what situation they were directly coming from. So when it comes to empowerment, it starts first with how an individual is treated when they first walk in the door. We also, in our classes, we talk a lot about advocating for yourself, that your voice is valuable and that you should be heard. And we have a class called DBT, which is dialectical behavior therapy, and it's all about emotion regulation, interpersonal skills, conflict resolution. And there's a section that we talk about how to advocate for yourself, how to when you're, you feel like a teacher at your child's school is speaking negatively about your child or putting you down in any way or speaking down to you, how do you advocate for yourself and your child? So we really do focus on just that you matter and that what you feel and what you think matters. We also have another class that focuses on healthy relationships and boundaries. You have the right to set boundaries in relationships. You don't have to feel obligated, or you don't have to feel like you owe somebody something. So we incorporate that into so much of our classes. So that's a huge part of what we do. The way our caseworkers work with our clients, we don't want to create goals for our clients. We want it to be a conversation where the client tells us what they need or what their goals are, what they want to work on. And our caseworker is coming alongside them and guiding them and helping them take the steps to getting there. But we do say at Laura's Home, you have a lot of resources and available to you at Laura's Home, but you need to take that step, right? Because if we constantly do things for our clients, that's not empowering. And that's not challenging. So that's not stretching them to kind of take a step forward. So that's just in our day-to-day interactions. And then with our home ownership program, that is a huge thing as well. And we emphasize it constantly that this is something that they have earned. This is something that you've worked for. It's not just us giving you a house. There are expectations of you and you have exceeded them, and that is your accomplishment. So I think it comes down to intentionality of empowering our women, but in the day-to-day details. So in our day-to-day conversations, and it has to be across the board from all staff. They need to feel dignified and respected in every area, not just with their caseworker or, one staff member. So, yeah.
That's wonderful. So it really also sounds like that the theme of empowerment is embedded in the mission's philosophy as an employer, so at all levels of the organization. And from our interactions with the mission, it appears that you empower your employees in terms of professional development and all of that. So can you talk a little bit about what that looks like and why that's so important?
Sure. I think that I feel like we can always grow in that area. So I will say that that is something we're doing, but we continue to learn more and grow in that area from the leadership perspective. What I believe is crucial is that we're building relationship with our staff and that there's trust. And because without that trust, without that feeling safe, without feeling that relationship, then I don't believe that that's helpful at all. That will not create a healthy environment. So I feel very strongly about that. And I think one thing that we can do and that we are doing is include everyone on just decision making, so that we aren't just making decisions from the top down, but that we talk and we have small groups to discuss some of these things. I think it's about 4 years ago or so, we every 3 or 4 years we refresh our strategic plan, and instead of just maybe me and our CEO and our CFO and those C-level positions, instead of us just deciding what that is, let's engage the whole staff. So we took a whole day to develop small groups and then have questions that everyone had an input and something to say and be able to participate. And then we would take all of those notes, all those questions, all of those ideas, and look those over as a team. And we learned a lot. You just engaging and having staff be heard is so important, because that makes them feel valued, and we all want to feel heard, and we all want to feel valued. So that's really important here at the mission. Just something I did personally several years ago was we went through the book Lean In with some women. I just took a small group. I did about 3 or 4 groups over the time, and we went through the book and talked about all those feelings of the imposter syndrome, of not feeling that you can have a seat at the table, as she talks about, Sheryl Sandberg in her book, and how women need to be for each other. And I am just speaking about women right now, but that was really a great opportunity. And it's really kind of funny, because the first group, there was just 3 other women in our group. And it ended up that all 3 of them ended up leaving the mission because they realized they needed to pursue something else, because that was their passion. And that's fine, but that wasn't what I was hoping to be the outcome. But it was really cool to have those conversations. And we have a lot of younger staff, so emerging leaders. And that's really important, to be able to engage them, hear their ideas, because that matters to me. And I want to hear those. I think that it's empowering to others to be able to voice their thoughts, ideas. And, I know I'm in this role, but I learned from everybody all the time. I learned from Abby. I learned from other staff. I mean, to me, it really doesn't matter what my title is, but we can learn from each other and grow together and empower each other. So that's really important to me.
Oh, that's really great. So another theme of this series, in addition to women empowering women, is navigating transition. And so that's really been a reoccurring conversation for us over the last couple years. So we know that transition isn't necessarily easy, but it's inevitable. And needless to say, as we were talking about earlier, the pandemic has presented many challenges over the last few months. So Linda, before we hopped on the call today, you were talking about a little bit on how, these challenges with that transition presented opportunities. Can you explain a little bit about that and some exciting things that are on the horizon?
Sure. Right. I think that this whole pandemic, we can come out of it just feeling miserable and, oh, this was so bad, this was just awful. But I really like to look at it as, okay, what was exposed that we need to change, to improve, to maybe not do anymore? That's a time to reflect. It is not to me, it's just not all bad. And if I've missed the opportunity to look at what I could learn from it, then I think that's too bad, because that wouldn't be how I'd want to come out of it. So because of the pandemic, we have adjusted so many things. And we were also talking earlier, just the availability of Zoom and how that has been helpful to our clients and their access to services that maybe they wouldn't have had before. It could be telehealth, it could be counseling, or before there was no transportation. Oh, I can't get there. I don't have somebody to watch my children. And so that has actually been a real benefit. And I think we'll continue using, taking advantage of those telehealth and other opportunities to get services for our clients. I'm very grateful for that. One thing that we learned at our men's facility, the way it's set up, we have 3 different dorms and we have bunk beds in there, and that isn't great for social distancing or for staying healthy. So what we did was convert our lounges or other spaces within the building into smaller dorms, and so that we could space out the men. And that has actually worked very well. And because of that, we've decided to, this should be permanent. I think this is the way it needs to go for the future. And we also feel it's more dignified. I've always wanted that. We don't love dorm style settings for our clients. I prefer something that is smaller, or, just it's 2 or 4 individuals in a room versus, 20. So we are changing in our whole configuration at our Crossroads facility. So that actually will begin soon. We were starting a capital campaign to raise the money for these renovations at Crossroads. And we're really excited that will be starting hopefully within the next 3 or 4 weeks. So we're renovating spaces. We are we have another building right next to our Crossroads men's facility that's going to be where the classrooms are. So we had classrooms in the facility, but now we're transitioning all of those to this other building where there is more space. We're able to have individual offices for counseling if necessary, where they can do that telehealth with confidentiality. I guess I just would say again that the whole idea of dignity and respect for our clients is so important to the mission. And so we are going to make those renovations here. And then also at Laura's home, in the past, Pathways, which is our youth program, was located downtown because we have a big gym here, and it was our after school program. Well, about 8 to 10 years ago, we moved it to Laura's home. And Laura's home was never built to handle all these kids. At times we have, when we're really in the summertime, especially what we've seen over the past year, sometimes we have 80 or 90 kids that are residing at Laura's home with their moms. So we needed more space. So we're adding an 8,000 square foot addition to Laura's home. And we're so excited because we're also going to build our daycare center so that it would be licensed. We don't have a licensed daycare right now because we just watched the children that are in the building, but we are looking at being ready to be able to provide daycare for our families. Because maybe, that mom, has a job right now, she's going to have to secure childcare outside. But what if we had a childcare that we could help, and she wouldn't have to transfer and transport her kids somewhere else, but we could help. So that's also what we're thinking about. Before COVID hit, we were planning on a much larger expansion, but we didn't feel it was responsible to do that, to raise the money. We were very sensitive to the community and realized this is not the time. So this is our phase 1 of renovations and some additions to Laura's home. And when you talk about change, it's so funny. Maybe I'm a little strange in this way, but I love change. And I love that no 2 days look the same here at the mission. I loved that when I was at Laura's home, and it certainly is the same way here today. I might have plans. Okay, I know what I'm going to get this, and this done today. Well, one email can just completely change everything. Oh no, that is not the plan. Or somebody walks in my office and there's something else going on, and I need to address that. So I like change. And I had my predecessor at Laura's home. She just says, you have to embrace change, and because if you don't, what's the other option? Am I going to resist it? And then what? And then I'll never grow. I'll never have new ideas. I think change kind of forces us to think differently. And certainly these last, almost 12 months now have really pushed us to think differently, to see what we can do, and how maybe some of these changes will stick in or not. So that's it.
Yeah, I love that whole idea of embracing change. And so, keeping with the topic of navigating transition, Abby, you mentioned before that you took on this new role as New Horizons program manager in November. So, it's fairly new. You're navigating this change, you're navigating this transition. Walk us through that a little bit, especially maybe how you've turned some of those challenges into opportunities.
Yeah, it's definitely been a transition, and I do tend to be like Linda, where I do love change. So that was part of the reason I applied for the position within the mission, because I was ready for a new challenge. I think probably my biggest challenge with this transition is stepping into a role where I have to accept that I do not have any knowledge in this specific area. So being the caseworker to the women in the program, I can do that. But knowing what to look for on home renovation and knowing how many voltages of electricity we need to upgrade for the house to operate in the correct way. Those were things that were so foreign to me. And there was a few days just and I'm still going through it, but in the last 90 days where I just felt so not capable of my position. And I think when you're transitioning, especially in a new role, you have to accept that you don't know something, and then be okay with that, and still operate out of confidence, but not being afraid to ask questions and admit when you don't know an answer. Because if I tried to pretend like I had everything together during that home renovation, I probably could have made some huge mistakes and expensive mistakes on a home. And so I think transitioning into a new role is identifying the areas where you don't feel confident in, or you don't feel like you have the knowledge, and finding ways to educate yourself. So for me, it's been a lot of researching. We're focusing on a transitional housing program. So I've spent my last few weeks just reading, doing research on other programs throughout the country and what has worked, and reached out to those individuals to talk about what works and what hasn't, because it's hard to know where to start when you are in a new role and when you're potentially developing a new program. So navigating transition for me is being okay with not knowing everything, not knowing your position, and but making that effort to educate yourself, even though you don't. So it was very uncomfortable at times, but I think you have to know that it's temporary. You're not always going to feel this way. I'm not always going to feel inadequate when I'm meeting with a waterproofer on a basement. One day I'll be able to come in and say, yes, I know exactly what needs done on this basement. So really just being okay with your weaknesses, but knowing that's expected in a new position. So and then there was a lot of transition with COVID before I moved into this role. And with nonprofit, I think it's very common to have to wear many roles, to step into other roles and be willing to be flexible with change. I think if you're going to work in nonprofit, you have to be okay with change. And that's not to say that you should be abused and overworked. There's a difference. But you should be willing to step into positions if that's what needs to happen. And I saw that with all of my coworkers during COVID, and I was so impressed by that. So working in nonprofit, understanding that change is very common. But if you believe in what the organization that you're working for is doing, then it's easy. It's easy to step into a role because this is what needs done. This is what we need to do to serve our population better, and you're willing to do that. So as long as you support your organization, I think it makes it a little bit easier. So
That's really valuable advice. I love and agree with the whole concept of being comfortable with being uncomfortable because, you know, you might have some growing pains with growing and learning and all of that. And so I think that's all super valuable. And thank you for sharing that advice.
Yeah.
I want to take a quick pause in the interest of time and just remind the audience that you can send in your questions. I see one question in the chat, which we will get to soon, I promise. While more questions are coming in, I have a few other questions for Linda and Abby to close out the main conversation. But keep sending in those questions and we will get to them. So another theme that we've gone back to is the concept of work-life balance, right? So some of our panelists have said in the past that, work-life balance is something that you struggle with, and I'm kind of curious to hear about what that looks like for you, especially with nonprofit professionals and with doing the work that you do. I feel like it's common at times to experience mental and emotional burnout. So has this ever happened to you? How do you combat this? How do you achieve that work-life balance?
Yeah, I can go first. So I obviously have been in my career a shorter time than Linda has. So for me, when I became a caseworker as my first, real position in my career after college, it was extremely difficult to not be thinking about my clients' issues or, things that need to happen. And what if this happens, or what if I'm not able to help them in this area? And really kind of let those worries overtake you. So this is a very practical thing, but it truly helped me, and I stick to the concept of it still. And this is what I tell everyone. So I started going to the gym after work. So I would go immediately, I'd pack my bag, I'd go immediately from work to the gym, and I would be on the treadmill and think about my clients probably most of the time. And then eventually I would stop. And so by the time I got home, it was almost completely removed. And sometimes it can be challenging if your job is an on-call position, because that's different. You can't always control that. So when I was a caseworker, I really think creating a buffer in between work and home is something that is very helpful. So that can kind of just create that space for you to get all of your thoughts out. And I know sometimes when you have long drives, a long commute, that can help as well. So really just trying to separate, let me get all of my thoughts and process everything out before I get home. So whether that's going to the gym, stopping for a coffee, going on a walk, whatever it is that really can kind of clear your mind. However, when I was on call for supervising security, that was very challenging because I had, it's 24-hour security. So they could reach out to me at any time of the day or night and ask questions. And so that's a little bit more challenging. And you really just have to not allow yourself to work outside of when you're supposed to, which sounds so basic, but I really did learn that early on, and it has helped me so much. I don't feel like I struggle too much with wanting to work when I'm at home. And this may sound really bad, but being like a young person, I'm like, I don't want work to take over my life. And I think when you work for a nonprofit, you almost guilt yourself into feeling like you need to, like I need to do everything at all times because you love your job and you probably want to, but you have to have a life outside of work. You're not going to be able to serve your clients as best as you should if you're constantly thinking about work when you go home. And the other thing I would say, it's kind of stinks, but I really think experience and time is one of the only things that helps you learn that. So you're not going to have a perfect work-life balance right away. But I think over time, as you try to kind of put those boundaries in place, it gets a little bit easier. So and this sounds very cold-hearted, but you're not as attached to clients. You're not emotionally ruined by every situation, which is true. And, especially when you're in a social work type job, you have to be able to learn those emotional and like mental boundaries where you're not obsessing or thinking about situations every day because you could. So that's been kind of my experience.
Yeah, I don't have a lot to add to that. It's different where it is hard for me to turn off my mind about thinking about the mission because I'm always thinking about that. But I do know it's important that that is not where I get my identity. What I do does not define me. And so I need to remember that because someday I will not be here. And then I don't want to have a identity crisis. I need to know who I am and be comfortable with that and embrace it. So one little thing that I do, so my drive is about 35-40 minutes. So my drive in, I usually listen to NPR or maybe a podcast, probably work related or, information. But on my way home, I always listen to a novel that has nothing to do with work, but is just fun to listen to, that helps me I just want to enjoy that and not think about anything else. So that's a little thing, but it is something that I really enjoy, and I look forward to it. And I only listen to that book on my way home, so that something I get to look forward to. I did hear once, I was at a seminar and they talked about more for caseworkers, which was pretty interesting. It was just something for them. So that they at this organization, they had, I think like, I don't want to say a uniform, but a jacket that maybe had the logo on it of their organization. And they would wear it to work. But when they got home, they would take that jacket off. And it was kind of very symbolic for that person that, okay, this is off of me now. I am at home and this is what I do. And so it was just a switch for that individual. So whatever you need to do to say, I need to leave that there, and this is where I am now, and be, I think that I've heard, this term so much, just to be present, in the moment. And too often I'm not present because I'm thinking about something else. So to really be present in the moment of where you are, I think that will help.
I think that's definitely a reminder that a lot of us need, including myself, is to be present in the moment. So again, really, really great advice. So one more question before we have 2 audience questions after this, but one more quick question. So some of our students and partners and other audience members who may be watching may be interested in volunteering at the mission or supporting the organization in other ways. Can you talk a little bit about the opportunities available and how they can get the ball rolling?
Sure. Because of the pandemic, it's been very difficult with volunteers because, most of our volunteers are retired, and so they don't feel safe in, being in person at the mission. So that's been hard over the last, 12 months. But what we are doing, the very first thing, we love volunteers. We need volunteers. I mean, we really cannot function without volunteers. They are a critical piece to our program, honestly. And so it's called Volunteering 101, and it is virtual. So actually, I think there's one coming up this weekend. I don't know the exact date, but it is on our website, and you can register. That's the very first thing you need to do, is register for our Volunteering 101. You get an overview of, the areas where we need volunteers, what we're doing right now. And then you just start that process. And there will be a form to fill out, like what you're interested in and how to get involved. So that would be the very first step. very easy to find on our website. So I would definitely encourage that. And we have projects that are maybe just a one-time project, and that's it. Or there's a monthly commitment. Maybe you can come once a month and help in our clothing room at the Mission, at Laura's home, or at Crossroads downtown, or maybe you can come once a month and, be in our childcare department and hold babies. So that's always fun. So there's places everywhere. And the other thing we have is a really strong internship program. We really value interns, and we use interns throughout the whole organization, whether it's administrative, casework, development, social media, manager, our resource center for computers. There's opportunities everywhere to be an intern, and that is a paid position. So always just check our website that has all that information, and we are doing internships in person. So hope that answers the question.
That does, thank you. And I do want to also support the one-time group volunteer opportunities. So we've taken groups of students and actually faculty and staff to both Laura's Home and Crossroads before. And they have always just been so inspired by the work that the organization does and have really enjoyed volunteering. So if your organization is looking or whatnot, I can honestly say, like, firsthand, that it was really beneficial for our group. So I'm going to go ahead and ask Amira to turn her camera on, and she's going to assist with some audience questions. So we have a few in the chat. So I think we're going to start with a question from Mary. Amira, it's all you.
Hey, hello, everyone. First, Mary asks, in addition to financial donations, do you have any other donation needs?
Great question. Yes, we always need items as far as, diapers, wipes, formula at Laura's Home. We also need items for our men downtown. A lot of times it's razors or deodorant, just hygiene items. That's always appreciated. And then clothing items. Now at Laura's Home, we only take new items because we just have so many donations over there, and it's been wonderful. But we do ask for gently used for our clients, but any items like that. And then I guess for Abby, there might be some in, I don't know, New Horizons, but that's more specific for homes. I don't know, Abby, if you could speak any more to that.
Yeah. If you're ever interested, our donation line, you can call directly. I could put our number in the chat, and the extension is 336, but they would direct any home donations to me. But we do accept gently used furniture or appliances, anything from a home that can't really be used at Laura's Home or Crossroads, but could be used in a home. So dishes, things like that.
And if folks want to drop off any in-kind donations, where should they do that? Can they drop it off at the Mission? Are there vans or whatnot that pick that up? How do they go about that?
Well, we aren't able to pick up items just because we don't have a staff that does that. But we do accept all the items at our main campus on East 55th and Carnegie. So our warehouse hours are from 9 to 4 every day. And if you want something specific to Laura's Home, we would ask that you just label it Laura's Home, and then it'll get to Laura's Home. We will take it back and forth to the campuses. I believe sometimes at Laura's Home, they will, if you call and set up an appointment that you have something specific for women and children, that they would schedule an appointment. But the best is at our main campus because we have the space to do that.
Great. Our next question comes from Nicole. She asks to Linda, your candor and openness is telling, and your story is very appreciated. As another mom of 5 back in school after decades, are there any specific practices you'd recommend to combat imposter syndrome.
Oh, gosh, that's really good. And thank you for that compliment. I appreciate that. To combat the imposter syndrome, I think really kind of one thing that the previous manager at Laura's Home who was training me, one thing she said, she really appreciated that I asked a lot of questions. And I didn't realize that at the time, but and I think Abby also alluded to it, but I'm not afraid to say I don't know, and it's okay. And you know what I think is really important is that none of us are the complete package. There's no way I could do what I do without good people around me and that help me. And so any type of leadership role that I am in or that I function in is I need a team around me. I need to know my weaknesses. I need to know my strengths. And actually, I was reading Peter Drucker, the Effective Executive, and he talks in there. He says, you know, we're always going to have our weaknesses. That's just part of who we are. And he is interesting. He says, focus on your strengths. Don't focus on your weaknesses, but recognize what those weaknesses are, and then get people around you who fill those weaknesses in. I am terrible. I'm not great at details. I like big picture. I like thinking of ideas. So I need somebody around me that's really into the details. That is somebody that can say, wait a minute, Linda, if you do that, have you thought about the repercussions of how that will impact maybe an area that I didn't think about? So I actually think humility and saying I don't have all the answers. I'm just not the complete package, and I don't think anybody is. And so not to be afraid of that, admitting that. Then I don't have to pretend anything then, right? I can just be myself.
And our last question before we end is from Marissa. She asks, how do you promote diversity within staff and leadership?
Well, that has obviously been a big focus in our community, which I think is absolutely appropriate. And that is something that we definitely believe in and want to encourage. So what I would like to do, and we need to do more of, is those individuals on our staff currently, what are we doing to develop them more and to give them opportunities to lead instead of maybe hiring from without, with outside of the organization. So I feel like we need to be more intentional with that at the mission. I would say that one thing I'm really grateful for is those we serve. We do not have any filters for anybody who comes in our doors. We serve all people. And I love that's our mission statement, providing help and hope to all people through the transforming power of God's love. So I guess I believe what we talked about earlier, empowering women, empowering our men to rise above whatever circumstances or situations that brought them to us, will break that and will empower them to do more. And but again, I do believe we can be more intentional as we go forward, and we certainly are looking at that throughout our whole staff. So I appreciate that question. Thank you.
All right, so it looks like those are all of our audience questions today. Thank you, Amira, for assisting with that. And we are nearing 1:30, so it's 1:28. So we are at the end of today's conversation. And once again, I just want to thank Linda and Abby for engaging with us today. I know I learned so much, and I know our audience did as well. Thank you for sharing your stories, your advice, and also thank you for your continued partnership with Cleveland State's Levin College, and then just everything that you do, not only for us, but also for the community. We're really, really grateful to have you as partners.
Thank you. I consider it an honor, really. I am grateful for the opportunity, and we often say I don't feel like I have to go to work. I get to go and serve, and that's just, not everybody can say that. So I'm very grateful. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having us, Alexandra.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you again. To our audience, stay tuned for upcoming women's leadership programs. We do have an upcoming workshop in March on, it's a diversity and inclusion workshop called Diversifying Your Social Capital. More information will be sent out through our centers, e-newsletters, and all of that. Again, thank you to everyone for your support and for being with us today, and have a wonderful weekend.